can't shake the feeling that something might be happening between my younger sister and my husband. My name is Emily 30th, and I've been married to my husband Jack, 32M, for 6 years. Our relationship is strong. We've had our ups and downs like any couple, but we've grown from it and have a loving bond. Everything was going well until about 8 months ago when my sister, Sarah, 20HF, moved back to our hometown. She had been living in Florida since she was 18, but returned after her long-term boyfriend dumped her and moved to another city, leaving her with nothing. The details of their breakup were a bit unclear. Sarah claimed he had been cheating on her with other men, but it seemed far-fetched to me. I only met him a few times, as Sarah usually only came home for Christmas and stayed for a few days. He accompanied her twice during their 5 years together, and we met him once more when Jack and I visited them for a day during our vacation 3 years ago. He didn't strike me as someone living a double life, and it was hard to believe he'd just leave Sarah with nothing. I tried reaching out to him once, but I was blocked, so I decided to let it go. When Sarah moved back, she moved in with her parents, Linda, 55, and Tom, 56M. She struggled to find work during her first month back, so I suggested Jack might be able to help her out since he's a higher up at his company and could probably pull some strings. He did, and Sarah landed a job in his department, which was even in her field. For some context, Sarah and I have never been close. She's always been the golden child in our mom's eyes, and our dad just goes along with whatever mom wants. It's not obvious, just a lot of little things over the years. Like when we both got cars at 16, I got an old Dodge Neon, while she got a much newer Mitsubishi Eclipse. Her dance practices, outfits, and competitions cost thousands, and my parents never hesitated. But when I'd ask for $50 for a local volleyball camp, they'd give it to me, but you'd think I was asking for a new car. The worst was when I got home 15 minutes late once, and they took my car away for a month. Meanwhile, when Sarah came home 2 hours late smelling like pot, she just got a stern talking to. So when she left for college and stayed in Florida, I wasn't exactly heartbroken. Despite all that, Sarah started spending more time at our house. At first, I thought maybe she was trying to get closer to me, but then I noticed how comfortable she and Jack were getting. They'd have long conversations about anything, share inside jokes, and if I tried to join in, they'd just say, "Oh, it's a work thing." When I asked Jack, he brushed it off, saying they just had a lot in common and worked on projects together. The first real sign something was off came when Sarah would be at our house when I got home from work. Jack has a typical 8 to 4:30 schedule, while I work from 10 to 7. This started happening regularly, and when I asked, the answer was always, "We had some work stuff to finish." Then, about 2 months ago, something happened that made me question everything. I always make our bed with the pillowcases facing a certain way before leaving for work. One day, after Sarah had been over, I noticed 2 pillows were positioned differently when I got into bed that night. I asked Jack if he'd been in bed that day, and he looked startled but quickly said no, insisting that I must have been mistaken. I checked his phone and laptop but found nothing suspicious. They work together all day and hang out afterwards, so why would they need to text? I felt like I was losing my mind. A couple of weeks ago, my parents invited us over for dinner. Everything was going smoothly until I saw something that stopped me cold. As Jack walked past Sarah, she lightly grabbed his arm, whispered something, and they touched foreheads briefly. Jack pulled away quickly and kept walking, while Sarah glanced at me with a sly smile before going back to what she was doing. I know this whole thing is a mountain of red flags, but I guess I didn't want to believe it. I've been in love with Jack since I was 21, and I can't picture him betraying me like this. So I've planned a weekend getaway to the city, and I'm going to ask him about everything. I really hope it's not what I think it is. Hey everyone, it's been 4 years since my last update, and a lot has happened. First, I want to give you an update on my life. I'm recently engaged. It took a lot of therapy to get myself back on track. I tried dating right after I got settled here in Minnesota. I went on one decent first date, but then the guy turned out to be a total jerk, and I swore off men for a while. That's when I went to therapy to process all the trauma from my husband and sister's betrayal and the abandonment by my parents. It took a full year of therapy before I met James. Funny enough, he has the same name as my dad, which I'm still getting used to, haha. James is great. He's a chef and owns a successful restaurant and bar with his twin brother, Jack. I'm really excited about our future together. But enough about me. Let's get to the drama. About 9 months after I left, I had been completely no contact with my family. I didn't tell them where I moved, only a few friends and a couple of cousins who I was close to. One day, I came home to my apartment and found a wedding invitation in the mail. It was for Jack and Sarah's wedding, with a cringy picture of them hugging in a sunflower field. Included was a letter from my parents urging me to forgive and forget. They acknowledged that things didn't go smoothly, understatement of the year, but insisted we're a family and families work through problems. They even had the nerve to say Sarah wanted me to be her bridesmaid, just like she was for me. Seriously, what the fuck? That letter reopened a lot of old wounds, and my therapist definitely earned their paycheck that week. Now, looking back, it's laughable, but at the time, it was rough. I didn't respond. I just figured out which cousin leaked my address and cut them off too. Fast forward to last week, and guess who shows up at my apartment? Jack. I don't live with James yet, but that's changing soon. Jack looked way too put together, like he was trying way too hard to impress. I asked, "What do you want?" He said, "I just want to talk. I'm so sorry for everything. Sarah and I are getting divorced. I found out she was cheating the whole time we were married. I don't expect you to take me back, but I think we need closure for both of us." I just blinked at him. He must have lost his mind. I looked him dead in the eye and said, "Closure? You made your bed, Jack. Did you really think her golden hoo-ha that's seen more action than a Holiday Inn was going to change just because you slapped a ring on it? You're even dumber than I thought. I forgive nothing, want nothing, and you mean nothing to me. I'm better off now, and that's how it'll always be. You can go to hell." I turned, locked the door, and called my landlady. She's the sweetest old lady who knows all about my past. Jack was still hanging around in the hallway, and within minutes, her 2 nephews, who helped maintain the apartment, were there letting him know he wasn't welcome and was now banned from the property. They warned him that if he came back, the police would be called. I thought that would be the end of it, but it wasn't. My work schedule is a pretty chill 9 to 5 now, and most nights I head to the restaurant where James works. I hang out, keep out of the way, and enjoy the moments we get together. I've made friends with the staff, many of whom are James and Jack's family, and it feels like the family I always wanted. So the next night, I'm at the restaurant when Jack walks in and just sits at my table. It's a slow Tuesday, so it's not busy. James noticed immediately, recognizing him from the pictures I'd shown him. He walked over and asked if everything was okay. Jack stuck out his hand, trying to play nice. James just looked at it and then asked me, "Want me to kick him out?" I replied, "Not yet. I have a question or two." Jack's eyes lit up like he thought he was winning something. What a tool. I looked Ryan in the eye and asked him to explain what happened between him and Sarah. I'll admit it was pure morbid curiosity, and I was secretly hoping she got screwed over in the divorce. Ryan sighed and said she was having at least 2 affairs with married men. Old habits die hard, I guess. This started 2 years in. It was a tough time for me. I couldn't help but roll my eyes and interrupted, "Come on, Ryan, you're not that naive. Did you at least protect yourself, or did she get half of your stuff?" Ryan smirked and said, "I stuck it out almost another year so I could stash away some savings and sell off assets. In the end, she got way less than she could have." I nodded, then asked, "And what happened to her after that?" Ryan replied, "She had to move back in with your parents." Feeling satisfied, I leaned back and said, "That's all I needed to hear. You can go now." James, ever the protector, chimed in. "You heard her. Out of my restaurant." Ryan started to protest, but no, I want to. I cut him off. "No forgiveness, no closure. I just wanted to know my loser sister is back living at home. Now get out." James stood up and pointed towards the door. Ryan glanced around, seeing the glares from the bartender and 2 waitstaff members. Defeated, he tucked his tail and headed toward the exit. James added, "And if you ever come back?" Ryan quickly interjected, Yeah, I know, cops, trespassing." After he left, everyone around checked on me, which was sweet but also kind of embarrassing. James's family, who I absolutely adore, called to insist I stay with him for the next few days just to be safe. It was the kind of care I never got from my own family, and it meant a lot to me. I haven't heard from Ryan since, and I'm hoping I never do. Hey everyone, I didn't think I'd be back with another update, but here we are. First, a bit about me. I'm now a 41-year-old mom of 2 boys, 6M and 2M. James and I are doing great. I work part-time as an office manager for the restaurants and spend the rest of my time as a semi-stay-at-home mom. 3 years ago, James's cousin bought into the business and we opened a second location. It's been a lot of work, but with the 3 of them deeply involved, both places are thriving and they all get some personal time. Funny enough, I'm pretty sure I got pregnant staying with James after my last post, when his parents insisted I stay with him for safety. They joke it was part of their plan to become grandparents all along. Now, on to the recent drama. After Ryan tracked me down, I figured it was just a matter of time before my parents or sisters showed up. It didn't happen immediately, though. I started to relax a bit, feeling secure with my support system, and I rejoined social media. I stayed no contact with most of my family, including extended relatives, but I knew they'd find me if they tried. Not long after our first son was born, I got my first message. It was from my mom. She gave a half-hearted apology, mumbled something about forgiveness, and inquired about her grandson. I was going to block her, but the idea that she thought my child was her grandchild really ticked me off, so I replied, "You don't have any grandchildren. I'm not your daughter, and my kids have no relation to you. If you want grandkids, maybe you should encourage Sarah to get out there and do what she does best." Then I blocked her. She kept making new accounts and trying to contact me, but I just ignored or deleted all her attempts. Recently, though, things escalated. I was bombarded with messages and requests, mostly sob stories about missing out on the grandkids and wanting to make amends. I had zero interest in reconnecting, so I didn't respond. Then, Sarah started reaching out to me. Her messages were vague, just expressing a desire to talk. This went on for about 3 weeks before I agreed to a Zoom meeting. It was just me, no kids involved. When the call started, they immediately began asking to see the kids. I firmly shut that down. My boys have 3 grandparents, James's mom, dad, and grandma, and that's it. As the conversation went on, it became clear this wasn't just about seeing the kids. Sarah looked awful, and my parents seemed worn out and tired. They all started apologizing for everything that had happened. Even Sarah said she was wrong and wished she could have her sister back. It was almost laughable. Then my mom launched into her usual spiel about family sticking together and supporting each other. When she finished, I just stared at them and said, "Is that all? If so, I'm going to go now." They yelled for me to wait, and that's when the facade dropped. The real reason for their sudden interest was about to come out. Turns out, Sarah's been dealing with health problems for the last couple of years. For some reason, her kidneys are failing, and she's in desperate need of a transplant. That's why they were so persistent in trying to get in touch with me. Family members are the most likely to be viable donors. I looked at them and asked bluntly, "So that's why you called me? You want me to save her after everything she did? My husband wasn't enough? Now she needs a piece of me too?" My mom snapped. "Stop being like this. That was all a long time ago." She started to choke up, tears streaming down her face. "I know you hate us, but she's going to die if she doesn't get a transplant soon. Is that what you want? I know you think she wronged you in the worst way, but can't we set that aside just this once?" I stayed quiet, waiting to see if they'd say anything more. Finally, my dad spoke up. "Look, we're sorry for everything that happened, but we're dealing with a lot right now. Between Sarah's medical bills and her not being able to work, your mom and I are struggling too. We're getting older, and we have our own issues. We need you to come back to Missouri to see if you're a match, and we could use some help too, or we might lose the house." "So you need my kidney and my money," I said plainly. "Don't put it like that," he replied. Sarah jumped in. "Please, just come home. I need my big sister. I don't want to die. Can you just see if you're a match? If you're not, we'll never contact you again." I told them I'd think about it and do some research, and I'd let them know tomorrow. I ended the call and went to talk to James. He told me he'd support me no matter what decision I made and asked if we should all go together as a family or if he should come with me. I said no to both. I was going, but I was going alone. I told my former family that I would get tested in Minnesota, and if I was a match, I'd come back to Missouri and then we could discuss the rest. About a week later, the results came back, and it turned out Sarah and I were a perfect match. I agreed to come back to St. Charles. By the time I arrived, Sarah's condition had worsened and she was admitted to the hospital. This got everyone off my back about meeting up for dinner, which was fine by me. I had no intention of spending any social time with them. And of course, my parents kept hinting about needing help with their financial issues whenever they had a moment alone with me. Sarah's condition stabilized, and I met with the doctors who would perform the transplant. They explained everything, and I asked to have the conversation in front of everyone. We all gathered in Sarah's room. My parents were already there. The doctor explained that without a transplant, Sarah had maybe 6 months left. They walked us through the procedure and emphasized how I was a near-perfect match. The chances of finding someone better were slim. They stressed that the sooner we scheduled the surgery, the better. I walked over to Sarah, took her hand, and looked straight into her eyes. "Did you hear that? I'm the perfect match. I'm basically the only person who can save you, and I'm not going to. You're the most vile, narcissistic piece of gutter trash I've ever known. I came here so you'd know that the one person who could save you is the one you wronged the most, and now you're paying for that with your life. You're going to die, Sarah. You should make peace with that." Sarah broke down, sobbing uncontrollably, and my parents turned on me, yelling. The doctor and nurse just stood there, stunned. I looked at my parents and said, "Don't even think about talking to me. And don't you ever dare ask me for anything, ever again. The only money I'd ever spend on you would be for your funerals, on the condition that you be cremated and the ashes given to me. And then I'll dump them into the filthiest porta-john I can find." With that, I walked out of the room and never looked back. Now I'm back home, my real home, with my real family, and I couldn't be happier. Now, on to the next story. My husband died, and now I have to pretend he was a great man who loved me. I'm Lisa, 36F, and my husband Ryan, 43M, passed away 3 months ago. Honestly, I was relieved when it happened. Ryan abused me financially, mentally, and even physically. When I got pregnant, he convinced me to quit my job, promising he'd take care of me. That promise turned into control. I couldn't buy anything, not even a basic cream, without his permission. Everything that was mine became his, and anything that was his stayed his. I stayed with him because I loved him at first and didn't have anywhere else to go. My self-esteem was too low to believe I could leave. By the time I stopped loving him, he'd already had his first affair. He made me believe it was my fault. After giving birth, I wasn't ready for sex, and I had stitches from the delivery. But Ryan didn't care about that. He only cared about blaming me. I was slowly planning my escape, saving whatever little money I could from working at home, selling things in secret. Ryan wouldn't let me work outside. He was too jealous for that. I wanted to save up for a lawyer. At that point, he was having another affair, this time with a close male friend of his. The affair kept him busy, and honestly, I didn't care anymore. I just wanted him as far away as possible. I could have made a scene since I knew both him and the person he was cheating with, but I stayed quiet and focused on planning my escape. Then, unexpectedly, Ryan died, and now he's being remembered as some kind of martyr. Why is it that when someone dies, all their sins are suddenly forgiven? Even my own family, who knew about his affair and how he manipulated me, are saying we shouldn't speak ill of the dead. Everyone talks about how beautiful our relationship was. His family praises him, saying he gave me and our child everything. His affair partner even hugged me at the funeral, telling me how much Ryan loved me. His friends kept saying what a great guy he was. But me, I had to stand there pretending to be sad. The day Ryan died, I cried a lot, but it wasn't out of grief. It was because I felt free. It would have taken me years to save enough to escape him. He made it clear that if I ever left, he'd take everything from me and make my life hell. He told me so every time I stood up for myself. But now, I have the house, I have everything, I'm receiving widow's benefits, and I have full custody of our child. I've started seeing a psychologist, and everyone thinks it's to cope with my grief. But it's really to heal from the abuse I suffered. Pretending to be sad at the funeral was hard, but I did it for my child. I did it because finally, it's over. I'm free. If I'd made a fuss while Ryan was alive, he and his family would have made sure I ended up with nothing. They're just like him. Now, in their eyes, I'm just the poor widow who had no idea what was going on. And I'm okay with that because it's helping me keep what I deserve. It's been several weeks since my last post, and I didn't expect it to end up elsewhere. Honestly, I had forgotten all about it until a few days ago when Ryan's lover and friend, let's call him Seth, showed up at my house, saying he'd found my post. I was shocked. I didn't expect him to find it, and it scared me a little. But at this point, if someone shared it without my consent, there's not much I can do about it. One of my sons let him in. I hadn't heard the doorbell. I didn't want to make a scene in front of my kids, so I allowed him to come in. I was curious about what he'd say. When we were alone, Seth told me that he knew I was aware of his affair with Ryan because of the post, which he claimed to have seen on TikTok. I never posted it there, so I assumed someone else must have uploaded it. He tried to defend Ryan. He said Ryan wasn't the best husband, but he was a great friend and a hard-working man. Seth told me Ryan's family misses him and that despite his mistakes, I should let the past go. He insisted that we'd all be better off if I stopped digging into it. Seth kept pushing, and it felt intimidating. His attitude reminded me of Ryan, controlling, telling me how to behave. For the first time since Ryan's death, I felt on the verge of a panic attack in the presence of another man. It was like I was facing my husband again. I know Seth is scared that I'll tell people the truth about their affair. He's gay, and maybe he has a boyfriend now, and he's worried about what might happen if the truth comes out. For years, I was submissive. Ryan turned me into someone who always put her head down, but when Ryan died, I cried with relief. I felt free. Yet here was Seth, in my house, telling me what to do as if I were still Ryan's puppet. Seth knew what kind of abuse I suffered, but he still slept with my husband. He's the man Ryan made me cook for, the man my husband slept with while treating me like nothing more than a maid. And now this same man was in my home, telling me Ryan was a good person and that I should keep quiet. I couldn't take it. I wanted to slap him, but I was so angry that I punched him instead. In that moment, it felt like I was hitting Ryan too. I don't regret it. It felt good. I yelled at him to leave, and I told him if he didn't, I'd expose everything. He left and has been quiet since. Originally, my plan was to stay silent and move on. But that's a whole different thing from having someone like Seth come in and tell me what to do. My reaction might not have been perfect, but I'm tired of being told to shut up. I never got to stand up to Ryan, but that day, it felt like I finally did. I haven't told anyone yet, and I don't plan to, but if Seth tries anything, I won't hesitate to make a TikTok or post on Facebook and tell the whole truth. As for the house, with the current economic crisis, I doubt anyone can afford to buy it at full price. For now, my focus is on finding a better job in the future. Renting out this house could be a great way to make some money. Eventually, I'd like to buy a small piece of land, even if it's far away. I want something that's mine and my children's. My kids don't miss Ryan much, and I understand why. It took me a while to get them into child therapy, but they've started their sessions and they're doing well. I'm seeing a psychologist too. One of the best decisions I've made is cutting back on contact with Ryan's family and even my own. I've started making excuses, like saying I'm busy with work or we're not home. I still have to let Ryan's mom visit from time to time, but even my kids seem happier now that my mood has improved. I doubt many people are still interested in this, but thank you for the messages I received. Although a lot of people don't seem to understand that cultures and laws are different here, and buying a house or moving to the other side of the country in a month is impossible for most of us.